Okay, in this one, I'm going to show you all of the post-processing effects that went on inside After Effects for this animation right here. If you haven't seen part one, that's where I made all of this stuff inside Blender. And then this one, I'm just going to be color grading it and showing you all of my After Effects workflow to make it look nice. Okay, so here's how you actually import this image sequence into After Effects. So I have the project open here. This is the Instagram version I was working on before this. There's all these effects in here, but you can just ignore all of this. This just is, it's the same process whether you're working in a project that's new or not, like this one. The way you do it is just come over to this panel, the project one, and then just double click it. Navigate to the file or the folder that has all of the images in the image sequence. So you can see here's the folder for mine. So I just put it into this new one called desktop version. Open this up and there's these 350 PNG frames that have come from just rendering this as an image sequence. So all you do is just click on, I think any one of them, but I'll just do the first one, hit import, and by default this box should be checked, PNG sequence right here. And there you go, it just imports it into, you'll get a new composition right here. And then there we go, it's in. And if I press play, here's where the first problem happens. Well, it's working, but if I zoom in, here is an issue you get with these kinds of textures. I'll show you how to fix this in a second, but when you have these textures that have like really high, but also really low roughness values in the same material, so like this grungy wall, for example, watch what happens when I press play. It's so flickery and just like noisy and weird that it's pretty much unusable. I only learned like a week ago or something that there's actually a way to fix this in After Effects and DaVinci, and it's called temporal filtering or temporal denoising. So DaVinci has just a temporal denoising slider. You have to have the paid version though. In After Effects, there's actually a very similar effect. It's just called remove grain. So you just go to the effects, type in remove grain, drag that onto the footage, and then here's what I'm gonna do. There's this noise reduction settings here. Default is 1. I'm just gonna turn that off, and then so it's doing nothing right now. I'm gonna go down to this drop down right here, the temporal filtering box right here. If this UI is too small, I apologize. I'll try and get that fixed, but there's a temporal filtering section right here. Just enable that. I just leave it on default settings, and it is going to slow it way down, but it's going to fix that weird flickering kind of effect. You have to change this from preview to final output, my bad, and then now it should be much cleaner. Yeah, okay. So that is much better than before. If I just take this off and then look at it, that's before, and with this effect, that's after. Still a little bit flickery. I could probably do more samples, but from out here, I think it's going to be no problem at all. Yeah. If I really wanted to, I could mess with the like the noise or the the motion sensitivity. So maybe let's try that up 0.5. Let's just see what that does. It's the more you decrease this motion sensitivity, the more like motion blurry looking and like ghosty looking everything's gonna get. But I think sometimes the trade-off is worth it to really remove that flickering, because that was really bad before, and now it's, you know, that's much better. I think that is a bit too much like kind of motion blur type stuff happening on the sides there, so I'm gonna actually bring that back up to 0.9. I'm okay with a little bit of flickering, especially because I'm gonna add grain on top of this, so I'm not really worried about that. But yeah, that's good enough. Zoomed in, it's a little bit sketchy, but zoomed out, I think it's totally fine. I'm happy with that. And now it's actually usable, so that's good. So yeah, default settings, just change it to final output and take off the noise reduction. So here's the final look. Let me just take you through each one of these effects that's going on here step by step, and I'll just show you kind of how this went. So I'll just disable all these except for that first one, the remove grain that I just showed you. And so we're basically just starting with, this is what it looks like from Blender, except with the remove grain turned on. The first thing I did was I just added a vignette. It's not doing that much, just making the edges a little darker. Here's the settings for that, nothing crazy. But the next thing is this Lumetri color effect right here. This is kind of like the closest thing I've found to the camera raw filter inside Photoshop. It doesn't have like things like clarity or texture, but it's close enough to where it can make it look really nice with just a few sliders. Here's what that's doing. If I just open this up, a lot of this should look really familiar if you've ever used any kind of photo editing software. So we've got exposure controls, you know, highlights, shadows, black, white, saturation, vibrance, sharpening, all this kind of stuff. What's really nice about this is actually you can load in a color lookup table. I'll show you that in a second, but that is actually making a really big difference. I guess I should go through the basic settings first. The temperature is coming down a little bit, increased saturation a little bit, exposure up a little bit, and shadows up a little bit, whites up a little bit. That's it for the basic settings right there. Even that alone is, if I take this off, even that alone is actually doing quite a decent amount of work right there. The next thing after that is in this creative tab right here. Like I said, you can load in a color lookup table, which is basically just a free way of making it look better. So if you just pick any one of these, turn down the amount to like 25, 50%-ish, sometimes higher if it looks good. That basically just applies kind of like presets, and usually it just makes it look better. So I pretty much always throw one of those on just a little bit. So I just picked this one, and you can see if I adjust the slider right here, that's what it's doing at 100%, which is pretty intense. I don't really need it that much. So I just put it on like 25 or something. Yeah, 25 right there. And that just makes it a little bit nicer, brings out the contrast in a kind of a cool way. The next thing I'm doing is I'm adding some sharpening. I don't really think that's necessary for video, but I just threw it on there because I thought it was cool. The split toning, I'm just bringing the shadow tint down to like the blue side a little bit. That's something I would do all the time in the camera raw filter as well. Is just add blue split toning into the shadows a little bit. Not too much, but just a little bit. And I think that's it for the Lumetri color. There is this vignette tab in here, but I find that for some reason it kind of glitches things out if I use this sometimes. So I'm not using it in there. I'm using the vignette as a separate effect before that. And then after the Lumetri color, I'm turning on this add grain slider. So I know it's weird to like do a remove grain and then add grain. These are doing different things though. The remove grain was doing a temporal denoising, which is like a specific kind of denoising. And then add grain is adding a specific type of grain on top of that. Kind of like a film grain, like you would get, like if you were shooting with a real camera, you'd get some nice actual film grain. That's kind of what I'm trying to simulate here. So it's not doing that much here, but what I like about this is that it kind of hides that render denoising look a little bit more if I have this on versus like having this off. You can really see the like denoising weirdness that's going on here. Like I said, I didn't use that many samples, and you can kind of tell if you zoom in up close. So just having that add grain does help mask that a little bit. It makes it feel less computer generated and just a little bit more natural and soft and warm. So I always like to have that a little bit. Here's the settings. It's just intensity 0.6, size 0.7, softness 0.8. Nothing special about the settings. I just kind of picked what seemed right for this, and that's what I went with. Sometimes I just choose a preset and then just turn on monochromatic on the color right here. I did that here as well. And that's it for the grain, just basic film grain over top of everything. I like doing that after the Lumetri color because if you add sharpening, it's nice to sharpen it and then add grain after that versus adding grain and then sharpening the grain. Looks kind of weird sometimes. So that's the order. Lumetri color, then grain. Then after that is this hue saturation. I don't know if this is even doing anything. I guess that's just making the reds a little bit more saturated. After that, I'm doing a final curves adjustment layer. There's all these colorful lines going on here, but the main one is the RGB, like the main white line that you get, like the default one. That is doing kind of just this S curve. So boosting this kind of upper section here a little bit, bringing it back down in the low end, and then actually fading it in the blacks a little bit. So just kind of adding that cinematic or like Instagram filter kind of look by just bringing this end up a little bit like that. So I like that look a lot. Just kind of fades the really dark end of this and just kind of makes it a little bit nicer and easier to look at. I find that when there's like really intense colors and really intense contrast like this, making it kind of faded in that really low end like this, just for some reason makes it just a bit easier on the eyes. I guess it just kind of makes it feel like, I don't know, faded, warm, vintage, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I like it for this kind of stuff. Just softens it out a little. And that's it. That's all the effects. So if I just hide all of that, you can see there's the raw footage, and then one by one, there we go. I'm still kind of new to After Effects. I don't really know what I'm doing, but this is the best. Oops, this is the best way I've found of color grading stuff. Is this effect right here? If you know of a better way, or if there's a better system, or things that I'm doing wrong, definitely just feel free to drop a comment, let me know, or send me a message or whatever, because I'm sure there's some people that are way more experienced with After Effects than me. And yeah, if you have stuff to share, feel free. But yeah, this is just what I'm doing right now, and this is what I've been. This is the best way I found to like work on animations the last little while. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to cover. So I don't know if, like I said in the last one, if there's specific things with even with specific animations that I've done. If you're following me on Instagram, if you want to know any techniques or how I did certain things or whatever, just drop a comment, let me know, and I will make a video on whatever people want to see. Go and check out my environments course for creating still images if you're into that, if you want to support the channel, if you want to like learn exactly how I put my environments together in a very detailed, very in-depth process. You can check that out if you want, link in the description. Yeah, with that being said, I think there's going to be lots of cool free stuff coming to the channel with like all the animation stuff I've been doing. I think that's everything I wanted to say. So yeah, thanks for watching. Take care. Peace. Bye.